Diogenes was a 4th century philosopher and the most famous face of Cynicism. Today, cynical means being negative, but the original Cynics named it after the Greek word for dog-like, believing that happiness came from living according to nature. This meant stripping away rules and status and the material needs society forces on us today. He practiced this himself, famously living in a ceramic jar, eating simple lentils, and even throwing away his only bowl when he saw a child drinking from their hands. His radical freedom was put to the test when he was captured by pirates and sold at a slave auction. While other captives wept, Diogenes mocked the pirates for not fattening him up for a better price. On the auction block, when asked what he could do, he told the crowd, "I know how to govern men. Sell me to someone who needs a master." He pointed to a man named Xeniades and said, "Sell me to him." Xeniades was so intrigued that he bought him and eventually put him in charge of his house and his children's education. But instead of teaching them to chase status, Diogenes taught them to wear plain clothes, walk barefoot, and value philosophy over wealth. Xeniades was so impressed, he said, "A good spirit has entered my house." Diogenes spent the rest of his life proving that even in chains, if you want nothing from the world has no power over you. We aren't asking you to live in a jar or become a slave, but if Diogenes could live on his own terms in those extreme conditions, you can do it with what you have right now. So in this video, we're going to look at his radical philosophy and how you can use it to live on your own terms without worrying about wealth or status. Number 1. Deface the currency. Diogenes' story begins in Sinope, where his father managed the city's money. Back then, much like today, a coin's value comes from its official stamp. Damage that stamp, the official value disappears, even though the metal stays the same. At some point, the family got into serious trouble. Whether it was for political reasons or a genuine attempt to change the city's money, Diogenes and his father were accused of defacing the coins of Sinope. Fearing for his life or simply seeking guidance, Diogenes travelled to the oracle at Delphi to ask what he should do with his life. The oracle replied with the cryptic words, "Parachatein ton nomisma," meaning to deface the currency. He took it literally. Returning home, he continued damaging the coins, convinced he had divine approval. But he was eventually caught and stripped of his citizenship, and then exiled with nothing. It was only while wandering as a broken, homeless beggar that the aha moment hit him. He'd misunderstood the oracle. In Greek, nomos means currency, but it also means social custom. The oracle wasn't telling him to destroy physical money, she was telling him to destroy social illusions. Diogenes realized that wealth, titles, and status work like the stamp on a coin. They seem real, but their value exists only because people agree it does. Remove the label, and nothing important changes. What remains is just a person. If someone becomes depressed after losing points in a video game, you'd say they're taking it too seriously. The points only matter within the game and have no value outside of it. Diogenes would view something like a market crash in a similar way. Losing your savings may feel catastrophic at the time, but from his perspective, it's just a loss within a complex, high-stakes system that we've collectively agreed to treat as real. It's still, in essence, a game. If you can still think clearly, move freely, and maintain your integrity, then you haven't truly lost anything of real importance. We feel like failures not because we lack money, but because we believe in society's definition of success. That's the illusion. So to live on your own terms, you have to deface the currency of your social world. This means questioning the value you've placed on external things. So the next time you feel jealous because someone has a higher job title or a more prestigious degree than you, try to deface that currency. Strip away the social stamp of senior vice president or director and look at them for who they actually are. Human beings who wake up, eat, and age exactly like you do. Real value is what comes for free. Your breath, your integrity, the sun on your face. These can't be taken by any market crash. So when you finally stop believing in the stamp, you realize you were never actually poor or a loser or any of those other labels the world gave you. You were just losing a game you didn't need to play. Number 2. Practice Autarkeia. After leaving Sinope, Diogenes lived in a large clay jar in the middle of a busy marketplace. He actually owned very little, a single cloak and a wooden bowl. One day, he saw a boy drinking water using only his hands. At that moment, he realized even the bowl was unnecessary, so he threw it away, saying, "A child has beaten me in simplicity." Now, to the average citizen passing by, Diogenes was a madman who'd lost everything. But Diogenes looked back at them and saw them as slaves to their own homes. While we see a house as stability, he called this a burden because it requires constant maintenance, protection, and it anchors you to a single spot on the map. In his eyes, the citizens weren't living in their homes, they were serving them. Today, that burden has further evolved to everyday life. We feel like we need 5 different streaming services, a premium music app, and a meal delivery pass. Each one feels small, but together they create a financial floor that you have to maintain, and over time, you start to depend on them. You've outsourced your basic survival skills to companies that can raise their prices at any time. When your monthly bills are high, you lose the power to say no. You stay in a job you hate or work for a boss who treats you poorly because you can't afford the price of walking away. You've essentially traded your freedom for a lifestyle that leaves you too tired to actually enjoy it. Diogenes called his solution autarkeia. It's a Greek word that basically means self-sufficiency. We're taught that being free means being able to buy whatever we want, whenever we want. Diogenes argued the exact opposite. He believed that to live on your own terms, you have to need as little as possible. To practice autarkeia, look at every recurring expense, from high-speed internet to your 5 streaming services, and ask, if this was gone tomorrow, would I still be a functioning, content human being? Like Diogenes throwing away his bowl after seeing a child drink from their hands, look for areas where you've outsourced basic skills. It's about reclaiming the ability to cook your own food, walk to where you need to go, or find a way to be happy without a paid middleman providing the entertainment. Diogenes lived in a jar so that if a neighbour became a problem, he could simply pick up his home and move. When you aren't anchored to a massive pile of possessions, you gain the mobility to live on your own terms the moment life requires a shift. That same simplicity brings you the ability to say no. When your needs are minimal and a client or an employer demands that you act against your principles, you have the leverage to say no and walk away. Similarly, if your sense of worth is parked in your driveway, you're going to be hurt by every scratch on that car. But if you see a car as just a tool and you're perfectly fine taking the bus, you've removed the leash that the world uses to pull you around. Number 3. Be brutally honest. Diogenes was known for parrhesia, a Greek word that basically means saying exactly what's on your mind without a filter. This radical honesty was put to the test when Alexander the Great, the man who'd conquered most of the known world, decided he wanted to meet this famous madman living in a jar. Alexander arrived with a massive entourage of soldiers and advisors, expecting Diogenes to be intimidated, or at least stand up to show some respect. Instead, he found Diogenes lying on the ground, relaxing in the warmth of the afternoon sun. Alexander stood over him, casting a shadow, and introduced himself. "I am Alexander the Great." Diogenes didn't move. He just looked up from the dirt and said, "And I am Diogenes, the dog. We'll get to the dog part a little later, but right now, Alexander looked at the man in the dirt and offered him the opportunity of a lifetime. "Ask me for anything you want, and I shall give it to you." Diogenes could have asked for a palace, his exile to be overturned, or enough gold to live in luxury for the rest of his life. Instead, he looked the most powerful man on earth in the eye and said, "Yes, actually there is. Could you just stand aside? You're blocking my sun." Alexander was so impressed by this boldness and lack of ego that he told his followers, "If I were not Alexander, I want to be Diogenes." Diogenes, never one to let a moment pass without a comeback, replied, "And if I were not Diogenes, I would still want to be Diogenes." Most of us live in a constant state of self-censorship. We bite our tongues in meetings when we see something wrong. We curate a fake version of our lives on social media, and we laugh at things that aren't funny just to fit in. This performance can be exhausting. Every time you say what people want to hear instead of what you actually believe, you're telling yourself that your own perspective doesn't matter. Practicing parrhesia means you stop trying to please the Alexanders in your life, whether that's a boss, an influencer, or a judgmental family member. A good way to test this is to ask yourself, if I said what I actually thought, what's the worst that could happen? Usually, the worst case scenario is losing a job you don't like, or offending someone you don't actually respect. If that's the case, the price you're paying for your silence is way too high. Diogenes showed that a free man is actually more powerful than a king. A king is fragile because his power depends on everyone around him saying yes, but a free person becomes sovereign the moment they have the courage to say no. Number 4. Be shameless. One afternoon, Diogenes walked through the crowded Athens marketplace with a lit lantern in his hand. But it was broad daylight. He'd walk right up to strangers, hold the flame to their faces and stare. And then when people laughed and asked what he was doing, he'd just give them a simple, cutting reply. "I'm just looking for a human being." The marketplace was packed with merchants, soldiers, and politicians. But Diogenes didn't see people. He saw costumes. He saw roles and titles, but he couldn't find anyone who was actually home. Most of the people he encountered were so busy playing a part that they'd forgotten how to just exist. Because he refused to wear these social masks, the citizens called him the dog. It was meant as an insult, implying he was dirty or lacked manners, but Diogenes embraced it. He argued that dogs were actually superior to humans because they don't care about status. A dog doesn't feel poor because it's sleeping on the ground, and it doesn't feel successful because it's got a gold collar. There's a story where Diogenes was at a fancy banquet. The wealthy guests, wanting to mock him, started throwing bones at him as if he were an actual stray. Now, most people would have been paralyzed by shame or have erupted in rage, but Diogenes, he simply walked over to the table, lifted his leg, and urinated all over the guests. Now, this sounds like a total gross-out story, but he was just showing them that their sophistication was merely a mask. By breaking their rules of etiquette, he proved that those rules had no actual power over him. Most of us today wear the mask of a successful professional, a perfect parent, or a cool friend. We get so good at playing these parts that we eventually forget that there's a person underneath. We pursue the career milestones or refined tastes in art and music, not because we actually like them, but because we're terrified of being the person who fell behind or looks uncultured. Most of our anxiety isn't caused by our actual life, but by the judgment we imagine an invisible audience is passing on to us. So to reclaim your life, you have to use Diogenes' lantern to look inward and ask yourself, which parts of my life am I doing only because I'm being watched? The way back to being a human being starts with small, intentional acts of social defiance. The next time someone mentions a must-know book you've never heard of, Don't just nod along, agreeing with them, hoping they don't ask you any questions. Say, I don't know that one, tell me about it. If you're feeling tired, stop giving the same canned response of, I'm good or I'm fine, and say you're actually tired. Wear something purely for comfort to a place where everyone else is dressed to impress. When you kill your sense of shame, the people who only liked the costume will leave. And that's fine. Let them. Living on your own terms starts when you stop being a character in society's play and start being the person Diogenes was looking for with his lamp. Number 5. Practice Askēsis. Diogenes didn't just wake up one day and decide to be happy living in a jar. He understood that the freedom to live on your own terms isn't something you're born with, it's a muscle you have to build. He called this Askēsis, which means training or exercise. He'd walk barefoot in the snow and roll around in hot sand just to teach his nervous system that hardship is merely a physical sensation, not a disaster. One of his most famous habits was standing in front of a stone statue and begging for food. When people laughed, he told them, "I'm practicing being rejected." Diogenes realized that if you can ask for help and get absolutely nothing back, you realize that rejection doesn't break you. You're still standing, you're still breathing, and the sun still comes up. He was making himself rejection-proof. To live on your own terms, you must strip away the leverage the world holds over you through Askēsis. This psychological hardening is built on 2 pillars: rejection training and lowering your comfort floor. 1. Rejection training. Most of us are governed by an invisible fear of the word no, which keeps us from asking for what we deserve or taking risks. To remove the unnecessary need for social approval, you must realize that rejection is just a sound. Build this muscle through rejection-proof exercises like requesting a 10% discount at a coffee shop for no reason. The point isn't the money. It's to hear the no and realize that the world didn't end. In a complex conversation, stop nodding along. Say, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Could you explain it to me like I'm 5? Intentionally wear mismatched socks or sit on the floor in a crowded waiting room. By inviting the judgment of strangers, you prove their opinions have no actual power over your well-being. Second is the voluntary lowering of your comfort floor. We stay in jobs we hate because we're terrified of a worst-case scenario like poverty that we've never actually experienced. Diogenes lived in a jar to prove that human beings don't need to live in a fancy house in an expensive area to be content. By voluntarily lowering his floor, he killed the monster of what-if fears. And you can do the same. Over the next week, try eating only basic foods like rice and beans. By thriving on the bare minimum, you'll realize that 90% of what you worry about losing is completely unnecessary. Try taking cold showers or turning off the air conditioning when it's hot. Small physical stresses like these start to train your mind not to panic when conditions aren't perfect. When you choose to walk instead of taking a cab, or take the bus instead of driving, you're stripping away the premium filters you've put between yourself and the real world. So if you can handle being rejected by a crowd or sleeping on a hard floor, you're proving that you're capable of navigating life standing on your own 2 feet, regardless of your life situation. And that's our video. What did you think? Was Diogenes a genius ahead of his time, or have we just been overanalyzing an ancient man's mental health issues? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But until next time, I've been Dan, you've been awesome, and if you enjoyed what you saw or found it helpful at all, why not check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist? And for more videos to help you find success and happiness using beautiful philosophical wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.